Hi everybody, and welcome to the pre-video for lesson 12-2, which is the special right triangles. And the first special right triangle is a 45-45-90 right triangle. So the thing to understand is that this is only going to apply the triangles with triangles that have the three angles 45, 45, 90. Okay, so it's not going to apply to anything else but a situation. I mean, it can be rotated, it can be whatever. But you got to have a right triangle, so you got to have a 90-degree angle, and then the other two angles have to be 45 and 45. Okay, that's the only time that you're going to be able to use this particular pattern. Okay, and this pattern, then the other thing to understand is that this pattern works every single time you have a 45-90 triangle. In other words, it's an isosceles triangle, right? So the two sides are going to be equal. We'll just call them S. So side length equals S. So, and then whatever that side length is for the legs, okay, the hypotenuse is always going to be that side length multiplied by the square root of 2 every single time, okay? So as long as you're given either one of the two legs or the hypotenuse, you can use this pattern to figure out what S is and then solve for the other two sides. So let's go ahead and do an example. Okay, so let's look at an example here. And I found that students actually, while this is actually very straightforward in a lot of ways, students do have trouble kind of getting their mind kind of wrapped around this. And once you've got it, you're never going to mess it up. But you've got to kind of get it. So we're going to actually go through these two problems, and then on the next page, we're going to go through some questions for you guys to try to answer. So, all right, so let's take a look here. We've got 45-90 triangle in both of these, right? Two 45-degree angles and one 90-degree angle. So that's what we've got to have each time if we want to use that pattern, okay? And then we've got to remember the pattern. Remember the pattern for every single time. And we'll just draw it kind of like this one here. Got a right angle here. Got our 45s at either end here. Remember, it's S, S, and then S times the square root of 2. Okay, so now what we've got to do is we always want to figure out what S is. Because if we know what S is, we can do any of these. We can simply write S for the two legs, or we can multiply S times the square root of 2 for the hypotenuse. So we need to figure out what S is. So if we look here, what have we been given? Well, we've been given 8. We've been given one of the sides. We want to find the hypotenuse, right? So we've been given 8 that lines up with one of the S's. So S equals 8. It's that simple, okay? Don't overcomplicate this. Okay, if you're given one of the side lengths, you're given S. Okay, not one of the side lengths, one of the lengths, excuse me. Hypotenuse is also a side. So if you're given one of those legs, you've got S, if S equals 8. So then what is the hypotenuse? Well, the hypotenuse is S times H equals S times the square root of 2. So that's going to be 8 times the square root of 2, depending on if this is a real world situation or whatnot, if they ask you to go to the nearest tenth or whatever. But if they don't, just that's simplified as much as it can be. The hypotenuse is 8 times the square root of 2. Okay, it can be that simple, okay? So the biggest thing here is just overcomplicating. Realize every single time you have a 45, 45, 90 triangle, the two legs are going to be the same, and they are equal to S. And then the hypotenuse is equal to that same value S, just multiplied by the square root of 2. All right, so let's look at the next one. So the next one here, okay, again, we've got a 45, 90 triangle. So we go ahead and we can draw it here. And we've got S, S, and S times the square root of 2. That's always the pattern. Here's our right angle. Got the two 45-degree angles. So now we are given the hypotenuse, and we want to find a side. So what we're given here is 5 square root of 2. So we know the hypotenuse, S times the square root of 2, is equal to 5 times the square root of 2. Well, that's another easy one to find S, right? S is equal to 5. S times square root of 2 is equal to 5 square root of 2. I mean, you can go through the algebra here and divide each side by square root of 2. And you're left with S equals 5. I mean, that's fine. So once we know that S equals 5, well, we're looking for one of the sides. It's 5. So X then equals 5. Okay, I encourage you, if you're having any trouble with this, and believe me, you're not the only one. When you figure it out, you're going to be like, oh, but it's just for some reason, it just takes a little bit to click. Do some practice problems, okay? And then we're going to do some problems on the next problem on the next page, which you'll participate in, which will be a little bit tougher, just mathematically. Okay, so now I want you to take a look at this one. And again, let's just draw. First thing I do is I just draw myself the form. I call it the form of a 45, 45, 90 triangle. And I know that this is S, and this is S times the square root of 2. Now we're looking for S. So once we find S, we've got our answer. They gave us a hypotenuse, but they didn't do it so easily as they did it the first time, okay? We've got S times the square root of 2, but that's equal to 10. So we've got to pull S out of there. So what I want you to do is actually kind of take a chance and try to figure out how to do this on your own and see if you can, get it to the point where you get A, B, C, or D. Okay. And if you don't, we're going to go over it in the next video, but take a crack at it. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and move on to 30, 60, 90. All right.